An ancient fortress stands watch over the ruins. The remains of the city that history remembers as Sepphoris. 5 years of excavations have yielded impressive finds. Now the archaeologists are set to prove an unusual theory, that at one time Sepphoris was home to Jews, pagans, and Christians, that they lived here together in peace. Last year, the archaeologists unearthed a remarkable mosaic floor. But that was in the final week of the dig. After taking pictures, the mosaic had to be covered again. Yet those who saw it could not forget the haunting face that appeared in one corner. A face shrouded in mystery. They dubbed her Mona Lisa of the Galilee.
I got a shiver down the back of my spine when it was first uncovered. It was beautiful. I mean, there's no denying it. I could have sat there all day and just watched her. I mean, you would walk around and her eyes would follow you everywhere you went. It's just like the Mona Lisa in the Louvre.
They compare her to Renaissance paintings, and it's just exactly what it's like to me. So beautiful, so colorful, so bright, and I'd seen so many pictures, but it's indescribable to actually be looking at her face. They pour water on it, and the colors just come out at you. And I just stared at her for as long, until they covered her up. I just looked at her face, and she was so beautiful.
Not only seeing it in the ground, but seeing it with the background of the mountains and everything, I think the whole milieu just was what brought it to life.
I was most struck by how relatable she was, that she was 1,800 years old, and we today could still really relate to her beauty and what she represented.
Oh, I guess. She doesn't look like standard Roman things. I mean, it seems much more detailed, like something from a lot later.
Would you fall in love with her if you meet her?
No, I prefer blondes.
Work on the dig begins at dawn to avoid the searing heat of midday. As the 5th season gets underway, the prospect of new discoveries charges the atmosphere. This city on the hilltop between Acre and Tiberias existed in biblical times. But the name Tsippori isn't mentioned until Josephus, who told how Ptolemy Lathyrus, the Syrian Greek, tried in vain to conquer it. That was in about 100 BC. Later, after the death of King Herod, the city revolted against the Romans. It was retaken, sacked, its inhabitants sold into slavery. Sepphoris' location made it economically important. So Herod Antipas, Herod's son and successor, rebuilt the city and made it his capital. Today, after breakfast, the mosaic will be uncovered. For the dig team, this will be a long-awaited reunion with an old friend. The air is heavy with anticipation. The Tsippori excavations are a joint project of Jerusalem's Hebrew University and Duke University of North Carolina. Mostly they work in English, but the breakfast cuisine is purely Israeli. Herring, jam, hard-boiled eggs, and chocolate spread, mugs full of Turkish coffee, plenty of fresh vegetables, and a hearty appetite. The Israelis and Americans complement one another. Each has special talents. The partnership is a complete success.
That's the plan.
Dr. Carol Myers is co-director of the dig.
Right. Oh, absolutely. I mean, I saw it last year, so I have the image of it in my head, but most everyone here has only read about it and seen photographs, and they're very excited.
We looked a little bit through, and it's there. No one stealed it in the last year.
Dr. Ehud Netzer of Hebrew University, another co-director, spent the winter worrying about the Mona Lisa.
So it's a year is a long year, a long time.
We were very hesitant to bury the artifact last year, but at that time we didn't have the money, the resources, the time, the energy to really dispose of her and her mythological friends.
Dr. Eric Myers of Duke University, the project's third co-director.
We're thrilled. We've been waiting for this moment for a year, and it's going to happen today or tomorrow. We're very excited. Everyone's excited.
We got older.
Yes. We're all older by 1 year.
That's right. Careful now on the edges
Careful on...
as you're walking.
Soon the veil will be lifted. This is the moment everyone's been waiting for. It's the best show in town.
Careful on... Pick your feet lightly.
The lady is tying them a mortal.
Lovely. Perfect condition. Perfect condition. We lost a few edges here.
Tons of earth have been removed. In a few moments, the lady in the mosaic floor will see the light of day for only the second time in 1,800 years.
Especially with the loose stones you got. Here she is. Here she is. Carol, other way around.
All who have seen her have been struck by her beauty, by those eyes that seemed to follow them, by the timelessness of her face and the superb artistry it embodies.
You know, how many nights we didn't really sleep, worrying that maybe something will happen, somebody will come and mosaics are being stilled. It's not that mosaic is something that you can't lift. People did it before. So at least, and the view is there. I mean, her face didn't change.
She's so Renaissance, she's so modern, she doesn't seem to be 1,800 years old. And you have this painterly quality, you have the shading, you have the bodice, the pearl drop earrings, and the makeup in the eyes, and her beautiful lipstick and the way it's laid on her. It's very, very modern in its feeling. And I think that's what's attracted people because they resonate with the modernity and Renaissance nature of it, which is totally unusual and extraordinary for the ancient period.
She was truly before her time. Though she bears no direct resemblance to Da Vinci's famous painting, her unique qualities have earned her the title Mona Lisa of the Galilee. As more of the mosaic is revealed, there may be more surprises. The Galilee summer is hot and the work is hard. A little shade is a luxury. In a few weeks, the entire mosaic floor will be lifted and transported to the Israel Museum for restoration and preservation. Meanwhile, there's plenty to do. This was a triclinium, a large dining hall. Visitors to this Roman villa reclined on low sofas placed on the floor near the wall, on 3 sides of low tables. This was a typical arrangement for festive meals in the homes of the well-to-do. In the year 341 AD, an earthquake destroyed Sepphoris. Debris covered the floor, hiding it from vandals, preventing its destruction. Then new houses were built atop the ruins. That explains the wall that cuts across the south wing of the floor.
One of the main obstacles on that moment is this wall that I'm sitting on top, which you can see here all the way, which is a later wall. It was built when the building was destroyed, and we now have to photograph it to make a good plan to understand it, and in a day or two we will be able to take it off and then go to the rest of the room.
Save for the citadel, which dominates the surrounding countryside, the name Sepphoris is no longer well known. Passers-by are hardly aware it exists. But scholars of Jewish history instantly recognize the Hebrew name Tzipori. Around 200 AD, it was an important center of religious study. The Sanhedrin sat here for at least a generation. The patriarch Judah Hanassi, the prince, made his home here. It was in Tzipori that he edited the Mishnah, the cornerstone of the Talmud, the Jewish law. Historians of the Roman period in Israel know Tzipori by its Greek name, Dio Caesarea. It conjures up memories of a great and powerful city, the ornament of all Galilee, said Herod Antipas, who rebuilt it. By the days of Jesus, it was the largest city in the Galilee, its regional capital. People from all over the East came to live and work here. They established a pagan society alongside Tzipori's Jewish community. For early Christians in the nearby village of Nazareth, Tzipori was the center. And now it is being dug out of the dust. In return for their labor, these archaeology students are receiving an invaluable education. The point of the project, to understand the town and the people who lived there. One team has been excavating a subterranean water cistern. At some stage in history, it became clogged with dirt and discarded household goods.
Well, this particular area has been one of the most fruitful areas of the whole dig. These youngsters are digging in a underground cistern in the middle of a large Roman villa, a large home that we date to the Middle Roman period, 2nd or 3rd century of the Common Era, that is AD. It's been extremely fruitful from the beginning because out of this hole here came some of the lovely bronze statuaries that we found. But it's interesting that it's in dump.
If you can get your equipment in, you're free to share.
The numerous and unexpected finds that emerge from the hole surprise even experienced archaeologists. They're the evidence that makes or breaks the theories.
We can take as many as you can give us.
For example, a broken oil lamp. Engraved atop it, the Ark of the Law, the central element in every synagogue for the past 2,000 years. An enduring motif in Jewish art. Evidence that the house atop the cistern was home to Jews.
Oh, Yopi!
Catherine, check out the lamp.
Yopi!
Oh, the jug.
But the very same cistern yields up a bronze statue of Prometheus with an eagle tearing at his liver. That's a pagan figure, unlikely to be kept in a Jewish home. And nearby, a statue of the mischievous god Pan, playing his reed pipes. This is one of the themes that appears in the mosaic floor. Also found nearby, pottery stamped with a cross, indicating a Christian presence. It's very puzzling. The Ark of the Covenant, Pan, Prometheus, and crosses. Jews, Christians, and pagans in the same house, in the same family. How can it be?
One of the more vexing problems that we confront in the excavation is what is the relation of the so-called heretical Judeo-Christian community to the Jewish community. But the evidence is very complex. And while we're prepared to say and sign on the line that yes, they were all here, it's very difficult to identify particular houses and say these are Christian, a house, and say these are Jewish. We have a house with 2 clear Christian inscriptions in it. We can conclude that within these precincts, which are very large, there are Jews, there are Christians or Judeo-Christians, however we conclude them, and we're now trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together by period.
Situated along the main road from the Mediterranean to the Sea of Galilee, the mixed city prospered and grew. The Jewish community played host to scholarly academies and famous rabbis, to patriarch and Sanhedrin. Dr. Stuart Miller, an observant Jew, is the dig's Talmudic historian.
The rabbis of the Mishnaic period and of the Talmudic period lived, worked, were settled in Tzipori, or studied in Tzipori. And in that sense, they left a legacy, which is very much part of Jewish life today.
Tzipori's reputation spread far and wide. In rabbinic literature, only Jerusalem is mentioned more often. According to tradition, another building down below is the tomb of Rabbi Yehuda Nessia, grandson of the patriarch Judah the Prince.
If indeed that grave is the grave of Judah Nessiah, then the patriarchal house continued at Tzipori well into the 3rd century. There is some debate as to how long it remained at Sepphoris, at Tzipori, before it moved on to Tiberias.
At that time, Tiberias and Tzipori were the spiritual centers of the Galilee. In fact, discoveries made in Tiberias reveal much about Tzipori. Like this ancient synagogue, another possible victim of the earthquake of 341. The mosaic floor features the wheel of the zodiac. At its center, the Greek sun god, Helios. If Jews made such pagan images, especially in a synagogue, then almost anything's possible. Dr. Ehud Netzer took part in excavations here 25 years ago.
When we analyze the floor in Sepphoris, what is it built for, and especially who lived there? Was it for Jews or pagans or Christians? The question will remain open so far. It may be also a Jewish house, although we doubt.
And it is possible that this was the meeting hall for the city council, in what was a public building of the house of the Roman governor. A metal detector is not among the archaeologists' standard tools, but beneath the ruins of a house with a mosaic, it led to the discovery of a hoard of coins, 255 of them, dating to between 310 and 321 AD. Among them, one coin tells volumes about Sepphoris history. Dio Caesarea, it says, the holy city, city of refuge, loyal friendship and alliance between the Holy Council, that's the Jewish Sanhedrin, and the Senate of the Roman people. No other city in Roman Palestina ever made such a declaration. This friendship between Jews and Romans became legendary. When Judah the Prince lived here, says Jewish legend, the Emperor Antonius was his great friend. Centuries later, local Arabs embellished the tale. They identified the ruins of nearby Rumi village as Rome itself. According to legend, the Emperor Antonius cut a tunnel to Sepphoris and used it each night to visit the holy rabbi, Judah HaNasi. This water tunnel, too, demonstrates the ingenuity of Tzipori's inhabitants. With it, they managed to bring water up to the hilltop without the aid of pumps.
This would have held tens of thousands of tons of water that would have been held in the settling tank, and a sluice gate or wooden wall would have stopped it at one point until the pressure would have built up, and then it would have been lifted up and gravity pushed. The water would have been shoved up to the tell through overland smaller aqueducts from an underground spring about 10 kilometers east of here. This was the major source of water for the city.
Meanwhile, work on the mosaic floor continues. As the dig progresses, the smiling face of that mysterious woman looks on from a side panel of the mosaic.
The fact that she's so beautifully depicted, that she seems to represent someone who exists in real history, in real time, in real space, the question seems who she might be. Most people would assume that if she is a mythological figure, she is Aphrodite or Venus, because on her right shoulder, you will remember, there is a Cupid. However, I think that it's very possible that this prominent portrait artist had a model or a girlfriend. She might be the mistress of the house. She may be the beauty who lived in Sepphoris. It's very uncertain who she was.
She's a constant distraction, drawing attention away from the rest of the floor. Its beauty is at least as great as hers. 11 of the mosaic's panels survive, depicting the life and adventures of the god Dionysus. Dionysus, his father was a god, his mother mortal. As a youth, he wandered the earth, spreading the blessings of the vine with Pan among his retinue. But by the time he returned from India and Asia, Dionysus had become a god of suffering, a symbol of descent to the netherworld and resurrection. When the Greeks attempted to include the god of Israel in their pagan theology, they identified him with Dionysus. The tiger and goat are closely associated with Dionysus.
So this is really two of the 5 nicest panels.
These are 2 of the best preserved panels. One of them bears the Greek word for drunkenness.
Heracles, after the drinking competition he had with Dionysus, you can see him lying here. He's knocked down by the drinking, and with a woman holding him, and the satyr on the other hand. The second panel, Dionysus is sitting here. The inscription in Pompeii, it's a procession when he came back from India. It's a well-known story from the life of Dionysus.
Great.
No, don't roll it.
Up, straight up, straight up. This pottery is critical here.
Yeah.
After removal of the Byzantine wall, work continues on the entire mosaic floor.
Metal detector. It's late Roman, Zave. No doubt about it.
We assume that there must be a procession here, but we haven't seen it, because these big stones were overlaid on top of it. Yes, a man, human figure.
The scenes along the borders are domestic, not divine. There are flowers, birds, hunters. And there are surprises. During a routine clearance job, a new piece of mosaic suddenly comes into view. A crocodile.
Crocodile? Look at the huge crocodile. Look at the lovely crocodile, my God.
Wonderful.
That's a beautiful scene, isn't it, Raina? Lovely. Absolutely beautiful. 2 hunters, one catching a bird and the other hitting an alligator on the head.
Did you expect this?
Are you kidding?
No.
Of course we didn't expect this.
No, absolutely not. We expected people carrying agricultural products, like on the other 2 sides of it.
The archaeologists now believe that Jews, pagans, and Christians may have lived here together during the first centuries after Christ. They all met in the theater in the town center.
We're standing in the amphitheater of Sepphoris, ancient Sipori, and this is a theater that was built sometime in the 1st century of the Common Era. We don't believe that there was great theater here. You probably didn't hear any of the tragedians or the comic plays of the classical repertoire, but you probably saw some of the best pantomime in the provinces, and perhaps even demonstrations of the cult of Dionysus, where the Mona Lisa lies up above. And this was clearly, I think you'd agree, the center of town. The people who came to the theater were the people of ancient Sepphoris. They would have been members of the Roman administration who lived here, pagans. They would have been Jews who lived here in the period of Roman occupation. We know there were Christians here, but the sources describe them as somewhat heretical. And by that we mean they were too Jewish in the eyes of some of the early church fathers. They were called minim, or heretics, Ebionites, Nazarenes, by one of these names in the ancient sources. They probably would have come too because they did what their neighbors did.
The first Christians were actually Jews who believed in Jesus. They observed Jewish laws and prayed in the synagogue. There is written evidence that sectarians lived in Sipori, but so far, no clear-cut archaeological proof. By the year 300 AD, an historian first wrote of Christians in Sipori. 150 years later, a bishop from Sepphoris attended the council of early Christians at Chalcedon. There were those who came to consider Sepphoris the real birthplace of Mary, the mother of Jesus. The ruins of the Crusader Church of St. Anne are built atop the traditional site of her home. There, Christian Project historian Mary June Nessler traces the earliest record of Christianity in the city.
Because they left this bedrock quite deliberately, which we think they thought was the home of Joachim and Anna and the Virgin Mary. You know, the Bible mentions only the Virgin Mary. We know she must have had parents, but we know nothing about them in the Christian scriptures. And Byzantine pilgrims were very hungry for all sorts of bits of information about these characters. And so the names of parents were invented, the place where they live were invented, and the inventions don't necessarily have to be improbable. I find it quite probable that she could have been associated with Sepphoris.
Probable. Indeed, considering its proximity to Nazareth, it's hardly surprising that Sepphoris became a Christian city. If this was indeed the home of Mary's parents, they lived near a synagogue. This mosaic fragment with a Hebrew inscription was discovered in the church courtyard.
This is Chum from Tan Chum.
Steve Goranson pours water on another puzzling segment.
Now this inscription, which is on a door lintel, is from a synagogue. It's in Greek. We know it's a synagogue inscription because the word archysynagogos appears in it 3 times, meaning a leader of the synagogue. And it resembles many other synagogue inscriptions, except that it ends in this X shape, the chi, Greek letter chi, and rho. Chi rho is an abbreviation for Christos, or Christ. So the combination of that and archysynagogos is a question. Why? It could be that this is from a Jewish Christian synagogue.
That may be, or perhaps the chi rho was added later. What does this mean? Jews and Christians living together, cooperating with one another? The archaeologists are still looking for answers.
Begun to push aside the small tesserae, and while the damage is not great, there have been shifts in the whole configuration here, and it's really and truly in jeopardy. But it has to be. I mean, it has to be taken care of.
Dr. James Strange of South Florida University heads a small independent dig at Sipori. He was the first to begin work here. It was strictly by chance that he didn't discover the mosaic.
Pretty well maintained. Her beauty is, isn't that exquisite, though? That's hard to believe that someone could get that much.
Together with Eric Myers, Dr. Strange has excavated various sites in the land of Israel and written research papers. But now they're competitors of sorts. Above and beyond science, Dr. Strange has ideological goals.
I think the most important reason to dig Sipori is because we have literary evidence, and now I think eventually archaeological evidence, that we have pagans, Jews, and Christians living side by side here in peace. In other words, we have a chance to learn something from our history. If we've done it once in our past, we can do it again.
And so the work continues. Few days remain now. It's time to move the mosaic. Dodo Shinhav from the Israel Museum will do the job. As chief conservator of the museum, he's an international expert in restoration and preservation. Only few people in the world can raise and move large mosaic floors. Dodo is one of them. There are many problems. Some are technical. The water poured on the tiles 6 weeks ago has caused small plants to sprout between them.
I had a problem with her. She's very nice. but unfortunately we have some very, very small roots already appearing in the surface, and I'm just waiting for taking it out as soon as possible.
Dodo has a plan and a revolutionary technique. He won't pick up the floor, he'll roll it up like a carpet.
For example, all the middle carpet with all the pictures, all the 11 pictures in one piece. We will roll it on a roll. So we have this lady safe in the middle, and everywhere where we will exhibit the central part, the lady will be on show.
Oh, beautiful!
Weeks pass and the season draws to a close.
Another announcement. The bus to the airport, given the fact that the first departure KLM will be at 7:50, the departure will be around 3:15.
Don't go there.
There will be another bus for the other people who will remain to help with final photos.
The last few days bring new finds. Like this arch beneath the theatre. Rivka Berger is the supervisor of this area.
We'll be able to give the answer probably at the end of this day or tomorrow, but this is totally new for us. We had no idea about it before. And it's a mysterious, because I don't know it from other theaters, like I don't know any parallel to it right now. It's mysterious. It's too early to guess even.
What's the rush? We have 2 more days of digging, and I want to know. So, maybe we'll find out, maybe we won't.
We could do it free, but you and me.
On the last day of the dig, Dodo and his crew arrive at Sipori to complete the mission. First, a final, careful sweeping and one last look at those remarkable images. Dodo dares not touch the floor while it's wet, but an ordinary hairdryer does the job. After a day or two, the mosaic will be dry enough to continue. The floor is extremely delicate. Even a stiff scrubbing brush can do irreparable harm.
Nenad, it's not good, it's too strong. Don't use it. Use this one beside honey.
You're afraid, Dodo, of the backing or the bedding being a bit too soft?
I'm afraid from everything. Mainly I'm afraid from the devil. You see, he's so active when you make such a complicated work that you can't imagine. You can't imagine what kind of
misfortune can strike.
Can be. Even someone can fall down and with the feet to destroy something, and then the devil. He can cause to you to fall down with a bucket of glue on somewhere where you don't want to have it. He can make you that the glue is rotten, which you can't find out. Anything you can do. Anything. I have seen devils, they do such terrible things. So we are afraid.
Are there any angels in this work?
You see, you have so many mosaics nicely exhibited in the Israel Museum. That's only the work of the angels. I had nothing to do with it.
A stream of visitors arrives to see how it's done. Among them, well-known Professor Benjamin Mazar, Dean of Israeli Archaeologists.
This is a tremendous discovery. This lady is wonderful to know what is European. Have you something?
There are some people call her the Mona Lisa of the Galilee.
I don't think that this is Mona Lisa. She had a different name.
What was her name?
To tell you, it's a secret. It's a secret. Huh?
Mystery.
Each step is difficult, frightening. Lifting the precious mosaic without destroying it It's a very tricky business. It's time to secure the upper surface. A layer of gauze is laid down, followed by a layer of strong glue. Then a layer of jute. And then more glue. It's painstaking work. Each and every stone must be glued to the jute. Otherwise, the floor will fall apart.